Well, that's good.
Yeah, started the recording,
We have,
6:30. Yeah.
okay, just give me,
Does anybody need agendas, minutes?
I stole them already.
not gonna happen. All right. This is the Enfield Planning Board. It is Wednesday, the 25th of September, 2024. We are in the DPW conference room and I'm calling the meeting to order at 6:31 PM. We are also on the Teams, where we have our select board member, Eric Russell. And that's about it. So members present from my left,
Dan Kylie.
I'm David Fract,
Brad Rich. Tim Jennings.
staff.
Rob Taylor, staff.
And we're going to elevate
Jim Bonneville.
Jim Jim to a voting member for any action that's taken tonight. And Linda Jones just joined us. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
We're good to go. 7 with Eric, so
Yeah.
we're good to go.
She's not.
First order of business is a warned hearing on land use case number P 24-09-01. Robert Darnell has applied for voluntary lot merger approval to make 2 lots into 1 lot at 14 and 16 Wolfson Lane respectively. Subject parcels are both located within the R1 zoning district. The parcel at 14 Wolfson Lane is map 21 lot 15 and it's 0.4 acre. And the parcel at 16 Wolfson Lane is map 21 lot 14 and is 0.15 acre. Both lots are owned by the Darnell Revocable Trust. You want to come forward?
Come on up, you can use one of these cool chairs up front.
So hopefully you have some maps and surveys.
Well, I have a survey map, yeah.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at that.
Can you put them up?
Yeah, I think you have them as well. I have a map of the before and after. So, our plans include, we have 2 houses, 1 on each lot. And, we're in the process of, building a new home there. And so we're gonna demolish one of the houses, which is an old camp, part of an old boys camp there. You can see it's labeled that right there. And then, join the lots. And then construct a new, building adjoining with the building at 16. So there'll be, ended up being 1 building there.
Mhm.
You could either look at it at 2 homes being joined together or a large addition to number to
Which house?
16.
Down?
Can I?
Yeah.
Yes.
We need a laser pointer.
Yeah.
The laser doesn't work on the
So
screen.
this is,
This is off.
okay, this is 14.
Yeah.
And. I'm sorry, yeah, this is lot 50, you're right. And there's a garage here. And so this is 16 Wolfson Lane, I'm sorry, this is 14.
14.
Wolfson Lane.
The address.
So, I'm sorry, yeah, so this house is going to be demolished. And then we're gonna build a house that's gonna be this whole structure is being pulled back from the lake. And then, so there's gonna be one structure from here over to here. Okay? And so we need to join these together right there.
Okay.
That lot line.
Rob, can you zoom out a bit so I can see the entire boundaries? So where's the boundary between 14 and 14-1?
Okay, that runs this dotted line right here.
Yeah, because it's
Okay.
down the middle.
So this was two pieces of property, and I'm not sure it was ever joined, but it was owned by one owner. And then we purchased the front part from him, and my neighbor purchased the back part. So
And you also own the house that it's almost within the letter, the number 15.
that's a garage.
That's a great.
And that's that shed is no longer there. That's an old garage. So this was a shed and that's not here anymore.
Okay, and your access to the property from the
It's through
street
Wilson Lane.
through Wilson Lane?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, it's funny because the town, you guys, I guess, have this in some quarters listed as 16 Elwood Drive. Because originally this property is a right of way that comes down here.
Mhm.
This property was originally,
A part of the.
when this was all
14
built, Elwood was the only real road here. Wilson Lane was formed from a right of way on this property, way back somewhere. But basically, we'd end up with an L-shaped property there.
Which lake is this?
Mascot.
That's good.
One thing that I forgot to mention to you, we are only 6 people by my count. No, Eric is here.
Eric's, yeah, that's.
Okay, so we have 7. Never mind.
Let's go have to go home if there's only 6.
No,
No,
We have to tell you.
if there's only 6, you would have the option of delaying your hearing until we had a full board of 7.
I'm glad we have a full board. Because we are,
No, it would be up to you.
yeah.
It wouldn't be up to us.
No, thank you,
Yeah.
but. Okay.
We're
So
good.
have it later, yeah.
It's a voluntary board.
Had to mention it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So your access, your legal access would continue to be off of Wilson?
Yes, and I suspect the new structure will take on the 14 number. And there won't be a 16 anymore.
Street address.
Street address.
Okay.
Not lot,
It's
no,
not-
Okay.
it's confusing there.
Street address.
Okay. Board members have any questions?
The remaining property, the remaining building, it's still gonna have a 50-foot setback from the lake?
Yes, the building at 16 is 50 feet back.
Okay,
The Yeah, 14 is closer by Grant, and
right,
that will be pulled back, so everything will be
everything will be 50
beyond
feet
50
from.
feet.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay,
And I did explain the thing that I look for when I have applicants come in to me is how the deeds need to match.
right.
I think you've,
Oh,
that's
They're
one.
both.
yeah, we have the deeds are in both mine and my wife's trusts.
Yeah.
And when we went to look at them, the order of them were different.
No problem.
I know, but we had
I know.
we had a
Right.
confirmatory warranty deed, so now they're listed the same.
Okay,
And they were recorded today in Grafton County, so.
yep,
Right.
that's good.
And we found that
I got no
the registry, if it's not,
I know,
they will reject it.
And then I have detailed survey drawings if somebody wanted to look at them.
When was the last time the 2 lots were surveyed? What's the date on? the survey?
3 weeks ago.
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, so it's current.
Well, we're in the process of getting shoreline. The shoreline permit should be approved by the end of the month. I mean, they're in and all done.
Yeah.
Because we're having to reroute some power and stuff now.
Yeah.
We're going underground with the power. So that's all in the works. We're hoping to get this demolished sometime in the next month or two.
Okay. Dan, for a lot line merger, I don't think we need to be contingent on the shoreline permit, do we?
I don't think we have to put it in as a condition.
I don't either.
No, because they're already there. You're not changing anything.
Okay,
Are those dotted lines wetlands? The,
No, I think that's the parking area there. That's impermeable parking area.
Gravel.
yeah.
Gravel,
It looks
it's
like
gravel.
pavement or gravel.
oh, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept this merger as submitted.
Okay,
Second.
motion has been made and seconded. Because Eric is virtual, we have to do a roll call. We'll start with Eric. Eric, how do you vote?
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Dan, Brad,
Aye.
Tim.
Thank you.
Where'd Jim go? Okay, Jim, aye. Okay. I couldn't see you behind Brad. Usually you're standing right next to the camera.
not yet. He normally does last.
And, I vote aye as well. Your lot line merger or your merger of two lots is approved. You will get a written decision to that effect within 2 weeks.
And a bill, I expect.
I don't do the billing.
Got no bill.
That's
There's always money involved.
that's way above my
Definitely
pay
get that
grade.
bill
I'm
before you
sorry.
get your approval.
They don't let,
Now, this would be
They don't like-
pending demolition.
they don't let legislators touch money.
Well, no.
We just spend it.
So this-
We appropriate and we spend.
Right,
And this is the budget year.
that's right.
Gotcha. Altogether.
All right.
It's a setbacks, but
Okay.
good to see you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet all you.
Good luck with your new house. Or
Have a great day.
addition.
Take care.
History lesson for me, when in a situation like this where we're joining two lots, when we ever say no? Is there, can you think of a reason why we wouldn't say? Well,
I can't think of one, but
because
it's,
It's by right.
they're both
Yeah,
non-conforming,
it's the
right?
Yeah, they're both non-conforming.
But it's less non-conforming now.
in terms
Exactly.
of size, yes.
Exactly.
And it's the least difficult thing that you guys do because we
Right.
don't have to notify the abutters. We don't
No.
have to advertise.
No.
It's considered unobjectionable to put them back
Right.
together, so.
But a public hearing has to be conducted by law.
Right.
Thank you.
But if he had made it a lot line adjustment and he was going to make the 0.15 smaller, couldn't do that. He would have to go to the zoning board
Gotcha. Okay.
because they're both non-conforming.
You've got one of those coming up next
Yeah.
month. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, there are no conceptuals. Eric, select board report.
Let's see, select board, we had I think it was since our last meeting, we had a joint meeting with the budget committee, which was good, just talking about priorities and whatnot. For the budget for next year. And then at our select board meeting, started talking about, of interest to this group probably, started talking about what to do with the properties that will be vacated as the public safety building is occupied next year. So the fire station, the police station, the ambulance building, and just got started on that conversation to get that going so that we're hopefully moving right along when those, when the public safety buildings finish next summer. That was sort of the big discussion at the last one. So,
Anything else?
yeah, there's probably something I'm forgetting, but I don't have my notes in front of me. So,
I'll remind you, Eric.
Yeah.
I want to thank the select board for supporting our application for a HOP2 grant.
and you should have a letter of support. I signed that before I left. So. you should have that.
I think Rob has a copy of it.
Yeah, I
Yes.
wrote it.
You wrote it. A signed copy.
Yeah,
By Eric.
I'll absolutely make sure we get that.
Okay,
Yep.
that needs to be scanned, so we have his signature.
Yep.
And we'll submit it with the application
Roger that.
on Monday.
And when's that due?
Monday,
Monday.
we're getting down to the wire.
Yeah.
Let's do minutes now.
Yep.
Minutes of, September 11th.
Anybody need a copy? I've got copies.
Anybody have any questions, comments, corrections?
The only thing I had was on 288. Looks like, she's got a bullet for conditional use provisions and nothing after.
That's,
22.8.
that's because we did not have any discussion.
Um,
Other than that, I didn't have a,
well, the only thing I would do, nope, I don't have to, forget about it. I was looking at it, but we're all set.
If there
Okay.
was no discussion, should we remove the line?
I think that would be appropriate.
Could I move that we remove line 228 since there was no
Absolutely.
discussion?
Are there any other comments or questions on the minute? Somebody want to make a
I
motion?
make a motion, we accept the minutes, with the one change that Linda noted.
Second,
All in favor? Oh, we gotta
gotta do it.
do a roll call. Eric, how do you vote?
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
okay, Jim said aye, I say aye. Minutes are approved as amended. Next, land use, Rob Taylor.
So I'll start with zoning. Zoning is gonna have a couple of applications at their next meeting, which is 2 weeks from yesterday. We've got Laramie Farms will be in for a special exception for the wetlands crossings on their property for the housing development. They decided to just keep pushing forward, even though that is in court. There will also be a couple of, well, one hearing, but 2 applications. Okay. For the brewery that you guys have already heard. Brian Degnan.
Oh, one's for the sign.
One will be in for signage on the rail trail, and the other is to be able to allow him to have his wholesale business, which
Right.
requires a special exception. So we've got, we sent out the abutters notices yesterday. The abutters notices for the Laramie Farms, like 45 abutters notices. And I don't have my helper for that, so it was a big day yesterday, getting all the mail out, certified. And then obviously the same for, the brewery as well, so that's obviously busy going along right there for next meeting. I have made the changes that you guys requested in the schedule for November and December. Both meetings have been bumped up. Got to work with Emily a little bit. There's a couple of small conflicts, which I don't think are going to be major, with the community nursing group. It's here just
Mhm.
prior to your meeting. Question is, do they have 2-hour meetings or they have 1-hour meetings? And so if it's a 1-hour meeting, we've got no problems. If it's a 2-hour meeting, we may have a little overlap with them, but I'm gonna talk to her. I reached out to her today, but she wasn't available, so I'm gonna talk to her.
Might we have space in Whitney Hall in November?
Possible. Possible. As we found out when we had our master plan task force meeting last week, we used the basement room in the community building with success.
Yeah.
Takes a little bit of setup. It's nothing permanently ready to go there, so I have to bring my laptop and we brought a projector. I was gonna use the TV, it was there, but I couldn't make it out. Something was off with the buttons. Would take a new input.
Can you have an owl there or not?
I did, I brought the owl.
Okay,
We have a second owl that was from Whitney Hall. It's
okay,
basically just in a box now down at Los Allet, so.
Okay.
We used that. Like I said, it worked. We had a great meeting.
It worked very well. We had a project on the wall.
Yeah.
But, everybody could see and.
And I can give a
everybody
quick
could hear
update
Very
there.
well.
We had 2 chapters, draft chapters from the contractor, from Liz at Resilience. And they were on virtually Liz and Crystal I thought that they've done a really nice job. We did some wordsmithing and editing and some changes and additions, so forth. But the look and the feel and the voice was very much in keeping with our existing master plan, the first 5 chapters. You'll see, I mean, it very, very seamlessly will insert right into the plan and look good. And I thought they've done a great job. I've been working with Liz extensively in the last week and a half or so as they're working on the final 3 chapters, which will be ready for presentation to the task force. We have a meeting in October on the 14th,
I believe that's correct.
Monday, the 14th. And we will be reviewing and doing the same thing with the other 3 chapters. So far, we've had Heritage Preservation chapter was the first one they delivered. The second one was recreation.
Right.
So we've done a lot of work with those from the last meeting. And then they'll be delivering the final 3 chapters in the course of the next 2 weeks prior to that meeting that we've got in October. You guys, as I said just a moment ago, will have some applications for your second meeting in October that I know about. Of course, there's more that could pop in. Still continuing to get a lot of calls, a lot of speculation, a lot of real estate. If you believe it or not, the real estate inventory is still kind of trickling in a little bit. I mean, there's a few more listings if you look under Enfield, New Hampshire real estate. So, you know, people always call it, what can I do? What can I do? So that's the sort of speculative load that comes on here. Been busy here in this building. We are obviously down. Chantel is still out. She's returning. I think we've got a return date for her of the 21st of October. She did bring the baby in to see us last week and we had a nice visit with her. But Public Works Director's out this week, so without Chantel and Jim, I've sort of been acting or interim Public Works Director because Jeremy, our highway supervisor, is usually out on the road with his guys. So, you know, we're taking a lot of people coming in with questions and applications for driveway permits. And so we've been, I mean, it's been steady here. So we're holding down the fort, as it were. Working with Ed, town manager, we've got a meeting arranged for the TIF committee in October. We're gonna meet on the 17th, which is a Thursday. Our TIF committee will be sort of refreshing plans for the next, obviously, the next town meeting and the next warrant. Sort of checking out our plan, making sure things are looking good on that. We do have a couple of projects that will be actually hitting this year. Number one is the parking area at Whitney Hall. That will be paid for once they're done construction. The renovations of the parking lot, including paving, paid for out of TIF. And so that's a good use of TIF because that's public parking. It's available for anything from meetings at Whitney Hall to rail trail access, shopping, whatever you want to do. It's public parking. So that'll happen, and so will renovations or repaving of Hughes Park, also TIF. So I think between those two, we're looking at somewhere in the vicinity of 200,000 TIF investment, which we've got. The money is there. It's kind of piling up at this point as the TIF district continues to perform very, very well. We're making extra payments on the bond for the sewer extension, which was the original intent of the TIF program. We're also looking at a project that's on the TIF list down in the vicinity of Lovejoy Brook. You guys maybe have heard about that. I may have mentioned that in the past. There's some encumbrances in the vicinity of Lovejoy Brook due to the flood mapping. And my own personal experience with the FEMA flood mapping is that it is highly inaccurate. And so, because it's economic development, it's really acting as sort of a sea anchor on progress down in that vicinity. The TIF committee last year agreed to put on some floodplain study work in that vicinity because it is in the TIF district. And it really could help break loose some potential development in that area, particularly a couple of large vacant lots that you guys may be familiar with. First, right now, talking about the old Raphael's Kachina site, sometimes referred to as Avalon. That one is seriously limited in what can be done down there. As we discovered, we were actually interested in that lot for public safety at one time, but with the flood stuff, we've decided to walk away from that opportunity. You guys know, we think we may have talked conceptually with the current owners about some stuff down there, but every time people have expressed interest in that lot and they sort of really dive in on what the flood limitations are, it sort of turns people off and they walk away. So,
Well, you may also find that it's actually worse than,
yeah,
than what the maps currently say.
it's very, very possible. Although I do have, like I said, I had personal experience with it, my own personal property. When I got divorced and I refinanced my house, the bank said, "Oh, you got to get flood insurance." I said, "What?" And I looked on the map and just the corner of my house touched the flood map. And I said, "There's no way, unless it's Noah's Ark flood, that my house is gonna flood." Because I'm like 75 feet higher than the brook that they show on the map. But as you look at it from above, my house is right next to the brook. But they're not accounting for the difference in elevation for where my house is and where the brook is. So I had to pay, actually Scott Sanborn, guy that worked here many times with us. He came out and did what's called a LOMA, which we may end up doing if we can find some land that's able to be pulled out of flood zone.
There's a,
LOMA is a letter of map amendment from FEMA that we can actually get the land.
Is that a complicated process?
Wasn't for me, nope. It's actually fairly simple. Somebody has to basically document drainage and elevation and then.
this is also, just point out, wherever application gets approved, a lot don't.
Right.
Because it's actually worse than what.
Yeah.
Yep. One of the things though that we've actually got a firm that's gonna help us, that will be paid for with TIF money, it's maybe 50,000 or something like that. Is, they're gonna look obviously at elevation and everything. But one of the things that's contributing to the flood risk of that entire area is the presence of the rail trail, former rail bed. It basically acts as a dike. It's a dam to hold water back. So, these guys will actually do some study where the town may be able to slip a couple of culverts underneath the rail bed that would totally alleviate all pressure of flooding on that area. We've talked to one engineer who's like, there is no reason for that area to flood at all because you have Mascoma Lake downstream.
Right.
And Mascoma Lake can take a lot of water. And the problem is it just can't get to the lake.
Right.
It's literally being held back by the presence of that bed. And you know, that bed was built 1848 or whatever it was. And they put some culverts underneath it, but it was certainly underkill on the drainage.
Well, I take a little different take on that which is that when that railroad causeway went through there's nothing there but some wet farmland. There's a major aquifer passage right under those flats. If the town was seriously considering its water supply for the next 100 years, which it should. And had it been known at the time, probably should never have anything been built there. This would not be then an issue, that would all just be wetlands and so forth. So there is a drawback to the building in that area. It's that our main water supplies are right there. So I think if, it's kind of a planning issue, I think, but you know, it's one of those things where you go forward and you do find that the flooding's not as bad as the FEMA predicted, and maybe we can open up the dike, as you're saying. I think the town's gonna have to seriously consider what limitations should be imposed in future building there to protect the aquifer. Certainly not a underground fuel storage tank, for instance.
I was
There's already
under the
several.
impression that the McConnell well had some issues with it in terms of water quality and that it's not regularly in use. Do you know
Well, those
anything about
issues-
that?
Yeah, I do. I know a lot about that.
More than he-
I thought you might.
Yeah.
One second point of information.
Okay,
David's been trying to get on Teams and it's not allowing, I can bring up. The code is, Teams is not sending confirmation code for entry. That's what he said. And this is good discussion. So he just asked me to make a point of information statement. So is there anything that?
Okay,
can be
Rob,
done
can
for
you-
that?
can you figure that out while Tim is telling us about
Can you
that well?
text him? I'll give you the, oh, you can text him this. He needs
So the,
those two pieces of information.
situation with McConnell Well is
A picture of it. Send it to him.
entirely driven by the geology underneath the clay layer, peat layer of wetland back there. So the minerals in that geological structure from where that water is being taken contribute to it being just essentially very hard, but very hard. Water. That was a surprise from real well. But what it did do is it enabled the calculation about what the town and the capacity of town water system was increased because we did have it. It won't kill you, it just doesn't taste good.
Mhm.
It's actually good water otherwise.
Can you treat it?
Yeah.
Very expensively.
Oh, really? Yes.
Yeah,
Now
when you
it's
use it.
sewers down there, that may be, but I'm sure they've looked at that and ruled it out for a number of reasons that I'm not aware of.
Yep.
Point blank.
Yep.
And then the only other thing I'll mention is that I don't know if it's Petromart now still, little gas station.
Yeah, we know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they had a underground storage tank leak. This is 35 years ago.
Yeah.
Fortunately, as I recall, there's a heavy dense clay layer down about 10 feet below the overburden above the bedrock. And that kind of saved our necks on that one.
Yeah, that well, what's called the McConnell well, that Tim's referencing, is a unbelievably productive well. And so we do continue to maintain it. And it's the pump that we turn on when there's a big fire in town.
Right.
Literally, you can serve a lot of water, something in the vicinity of 100 gallons a minute.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and before that well, we absolutely were not allowing any connections. So I don't know how long, well before I got here, probably 15, 20 years, there was not a single new connection in the water system. So the growth was at a standstill. in the Village.
There's actually, right along with your point there, actually a really interesting case happening in New London. I don't know if you guys have been following that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of housing that's been approved in New London, believe it or not. New London's a hard place to build. They've actually got some subsidized housing. I think Twin Pines is in there, and then you've got some other projects. And it's in the vicinity of where a former dry cleaner had contaminated all the soil. And so they've requested connection to the municipal. It's not a town owned, it's actually a village district water system. And that water system has said, nope, we're not hooking up to you guys. And the developers have said, you have to hook up. The groundwater literally in that vicinity
It's
where we want
PFAS.
to build the housing is contaminated with
Right.
dry cleaning chemicals. And so conflict, it's gone to the Housing Appeals Board and it will be decided in the next month.
Oh, the developer will win.
I gotta think they will.
Oh, sure.
Because they've been hooking up other customers.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it's ones and twos. I think one of the other customers was a 6-unit apartment building.
Yeah, but-
What's proposed now is much bigger.
But housing is housing.
I think that's absolutely.
That's a foregone conclusion.
See. So we're following that for sure, but, I think if there's anything else, any questions, I definitely,
Yeah. Mentioned earlier that you had people come in asking what we can and can't do. Is there any theme to that or any, information you can glean from that experience that, to share with us about what people want to do that they can't do that seem kind of, I guess, why do we have this regulation?
There's a little bit of that, for sure, and Route 4 district is one of them. I've actually got somebody that's wanting to do some stuff in the Route 4 zone. And when you show them the stuff that we've talked about in these meetings, they're just, but I say, I think we're gonna put something forward that would actually get this changed back to
What it
CD.
was.
Yep. I do have a possible developer that's interested in solar. And, you know, the experience that Phil had, you probably heard, it's a R1 solar on a large scale is really not a winner. It's not gonna be possible with current regs.
Right.
And so that's an interesting one. Obviously, the problem that we've got with solar, and Phil can tell you all about this, is the Liberty Utilities limitations that we've got with the fact that we're on this very overloaded or undersized spur of electricity that comes out through Enfield into Kane. And I think it goes, basically is Cardigan Mountain School, the end of that line essentially, or it's close to it. And so when we put these big solar on that line, it's presenting problems from a sort of backfeed problem. Phil was telling about it, saying, on a big sunny day, the Cardigan Mountain array and then his array, and they're making lots of power and everything's going great. Big cloud comes over and covers over the sun, and it's almost like a brownout condition as this power starts to lag because we're not backfeeding in all that power. So those are some things. I mean, a fairly large solar guy came in to see me. He's actually coming to see me. He called me. He's coming to see me on Friday. But when we talked on the phone, you know, he's aware of that. And that's one of those big things that, you know, what does the future pretend there? Because there are people that want to put solar out here.
So yeah, the school district wants to put it out on their 40 acres.
Exactly.
So that was very informative, Rob. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to encourage you to put that on your list to tell us what kind of things you telling people they can't do.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing is I do tell people what they can do, and I'm proud to say that we're getting noticed by people for what we're allowing on the ADU side as people. I mean, that's, as we've talked about, we knew it wasn't gonna open floodgates, people weren't gonna start building tons of ADUs. But now it's the calculus that's going to everybody that comes through the door. Oh, really? I can do that? Yes, you can.
What's the objection for the Route 4 versus the CB? What additional regulations is?
It's overly prescriptive.
Right.
Okay.
And you know, that there's sort of a legend now in town about the Family Dollar and how that all went down and the
Right.
siting of that building and the fake windows, the fenestration, that whole thing. But again, I mean, it scares the crap out of developers when they look at that. Like, you're telling them literally how to put the windows in the roof, the slope of the roof,
Right.
all those kind of things. And I think it was a good exercise, but I think we sort of learned, and sometimes being able to sort of recognize is the most important thing, recognize what's not working.
Yeah, that we blew it.
Don't just stick to it because we did it, you know?
Yeah.
So I think you guys are on the right track there. I mean, I've been advising on that pretty much since I started here. So,
When I was at the Housing Academy this morning, one of the presenters mentioned form-based zoning and presented some information on it. And somebody in the audience said, what exactly is form-based zoning? And I raised my hand and I said, it is an impediment to development. And I went on to explain that in the 15 or so years that we've had it, we've had a dollar store and a car wash, and that developers don't like to be detailed into that degree.
Yes.
So we are proposing in Enfield that we are going to eliminate.
Yep.
And perhaps they will no longer push it at Housing Academy.
that's interesting. Lebanon, they're trying an experiment with something there where they're literally having architects design stuff that's sort of pre-approved. You can come in and if you build what they've given you, this is basically form-based.
Oh, yeah.
They give you a design. If you build that, then then the permitting for planning and zoning and even building permits are streamlined.
I
So
think
there's-
that's something to get excited about, that will have absolutely zero impact on
Yes,
the world.
yeah, and it's proving to be much more complicated just to get it out of the gate. Lebanon, I've talked to their planner and he's like, oh. It's very expensive. I think they're spending some of the money. I don't know if they got HOP grant, but they got some kind of like ARPA. You know,
Their ARPA money.
exactly, to do that.
Yeah.
And they have said to us, once we have it in the can, we're willing to share it with everybody. But I tell you guys will be interested. Just because of what we've experienced and what, the reality is. If you tell, people don't like to be told everything that they have to do, you know, I mean, you've got to let the developers.
The building
be
code is
creative.
severe enough.
And you know, I mean, we got to where we are largely before there was any regulation.
Right.
So the rural stuff that everybody loves came out of the people doing,
They were organic. It was
cool
organic.
things, the Shakers,
Right.
beautiful work, you know? So, I think, you know, I mean, it's kind of establish your sort of, I call them guardrails, you know?
Mhm.
That's the regulation, what we can't have, you know? But inside of that, you're free to be creative.
Okay,
That's it.
that's it. Okay, let's go on to, preliminary review of proposed language for parking. Can you throw that up on the screen, Rob?
You want the budget?
No,
I want
parking.
the parking.
Tim's proposed parking
Tim's proposed
regulations.
Is either of these it? WG? No?
No,
No, that's work for.
Might be on the other side. Hold on a second. Okay.
Are we gonna talk about ADUs, but Phil's not here?
Phil's not here, so we probably will, I'll just skip over that.
I imagine he's changed that quite a bit.
I would think so.
Yeah,
Discussion you guys had.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of red.
And for conditional use, the only thing that I can really say with certainty is that it has to be tied to an innovative land use practice
Innovative land use practice.
as defined by RSA, whatever it is.
So we don't wanna
We
try to come up with an
can't.
innovative
We-
land
we-
use
we don't-
practice, just to get a conditional use.
Right,
right.
process.
right.
So what's an example?
Cluster.
Cluster,
Okay. Thank you.
So
The village plan in theory is innovative.
shall we take action on that and just say we're not gonna advance that idea this?
yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
We can just, cross that off the list.
We had some high hopes for that, but really it's turned out not to be.
Now,
It's too nebulous in state law. So
Shocking.
Well,
I'll see if I can do something about that.
it clearly can be implemented, but it's in the Lebanon zoning ordinance, but it's tied to, as you say,
An innovative
land
land
use
practice.
practices, which there are several in their ordinance, and I think we'll end up with a conditional use permit process,
right,
Yeah,
but it's just complicated.
but first we have to adopt the innovative practice.
right.
And there are many. I think those of you who have been on the board for a while, when we were discussing, the alternate village plan,
Right.
I presented a whole bunch of information on innovative land use practices. Which, you know, I'll have to dig that out of my files and we'll give it to whatever group is working on that kind of stuff.
You wanna, well.
Top secret.
There it is. Yep. All right, so let's
Okay.
zoom in a little bit for you so you can see it a little better. Okay,
Tim, explain what you're proposing.
Yeah, so, so what I did here is I did a word search on the word park. Then I copied and pasted every section, every reference to the word parking from our zoning ordinance into this document. And so the black word, letter font colors are existing wording, and the blue is what I suggest we consider changing it to. So on each one of the district descriptions, letter N has almost the exact wording for each one of those, and I just say, let's refer anything about parking to section 409, which is the parking section. Okay.
Can you bring that up on the screen so we can have a look at that?
409.
Well,
Yeah.
if you please, Dave, let's just show you all of those.
Okay,
Yeah. Cool. Steve. Hello. I did.
Hold up right there.
You using the meeting code that we gave you? Remember, it's all case sensitive. She sent you a picture of the.
It's up, Eric's on.
Yeah, okay. Eric Russell was able to get in with the same login credentials. So I don't know what's going on. Again, it's case sensitive, whatever. So it's uppercase V, lowercase o, uppercase C, lowercase I, lowercase k, uppercase X. Okay, fine. Sorry about that.
That happened to me. I got in the car and came down.
Okay, so where do I go? Where do you want me to go?
Scroll down this, the other way, sorry.
Up.
Scroll up, yeah. So, there were, what was about 4 paragraphs, I'm saying we strike.
Yeah.
Basically, the word.
Right.
We get to this one, community business district.
Yeah.
I would suggest we don't have any proposed changes in this particular warrant article dealing with parking. Because we're probably gonna change this entire section via another warrant article. So, well, no, sorry. CB, I didn't see anything in there that maybe needed to be changed. That's right. Because it refers already to section 409.
Right.
I highlighted some wording there just to bring your attention to it. I didn't think we needed to change anything.
Doesn't seem like it.
Okay.
we do want to say that in that specific area, Main Street, Blacksmith, between High and Oak Grove, parking requirements are exempt. Want to say that?
Well, that's true now, yes.
It is true now.
Yeah.
So where
we're
did
gonna
it
keep
say that's true now? I may not need to change anything.
Right, so we'll just keep it like it is.
Yeah, it does say,
Structures are exempted from dimensional
Yeah,
and parking requirements.
with the exception of building height. Yeah,
Right, so that's something we
So-
want to keep.
we know that. We are gonna keep it. Yeah. So get rid of the yellow.
You know, I hear somebody.
well, no.
No, keep the yellow.
Keep it.
Yeah, keep the wording, but
I mean,
Yes, the color.
get rid of the color.
Yeah.
Hang on, I'm gonna share this. Wait, let's not share it for Eric. There we go. Okay, so we want to scroll down now?
Yeah.
and then, this is the one where,
We get rid of.
so we don't propose any changes.
Because we're gonna kill it.
We're gonna kill the
We're in
district.
Route 4 district. So it's all gonna go away anyways.
Yep.
So I think there's several pages here on Route 4.
Yeah.
So Tim,
Yep.
what would happen if killing the Route 4 district
Didn't pass.
does not pass?
Then this parking stays the way it is, but it is so tied to,
The building,
everything.
there's only
Everything
one
else,
way you can do it.
couldn't extract it
No,
without
you can't.
screwing something up.
No.
Yeah, again, refer to section 409 on Shed Street. Home occupation, didn't see any reason to change anything there.
Mhm.
Talk about parking.
No.
So here we are at section 409. And I tried to insert some words here to massage that a little bit, and I think at the end of the day, I said, you know what, I just need to rewrite this. So it's scrolling down there. These tables are.
Yeah.
I've read those every way to Sunday, and I can't figure out what they say. So, I mean, that's a pretty good example or indication that maybe they're not simple.
Tim, I think the handicap access
Yeah.
thing is federal law. That has to stay in.
Well, it will be. It's just, you'll see it addressed here.
Okay.
So pretty much striking all this stuff, and then you get down to, okay, here's the rewording of all of that above. And I was hopefully careful enough to not eliminate something like 80 million. It's in here.
Recommended 10 by 20.
So you just have to read that
Yeah.
word for word
Yeah.
until you run into something you don't like.
Okay, I have a question on your very first paragraph. Because things like shipping and receiving, loading docks would not apply to any residential.
Well, this is referring to more in general, so I think you're saying if I'm considering a residential lot, maybe it's a single family home or it could be a multifamily.
Yeah,
So what this introductory sentence says, to prevent off-site traffic and pedestrian interference is adequate on-site parking. And then just skip over the word "and loading." Shall be provided when any new use is established or any existing use is enlarged in accordance with the following. And we talked about residential parking down here. Item 2. And dimensionally, we have, I think there's one or two contradictory entries in our existing ordinance about the 10 by 20 or the 9 by 18. And I'm suggesting that while we recommend 10 by 20 for all the reasons we'd want to do that, let's don't make that the standard. Just go to the minimum size. And if it's a commercial property, they can either make their sites, their slots small if they want, or they can make them big. It's kind of up to them. I don't see that it really gains the town anything.
I like how you did that. You didn't make it either or. It's a range.
Right.
Yeah.
That
It's
seems
recommended.
reasonable.
mhm.
Or I could have said or larger.
If you're stupid enough to do 9 by 18, you can. But when Jim parks his truck, it's not gonna fit within the lines, but it's up to you.
I understand that.
Yeah. Yeah,
And we had formulas about lane widths and things
Yeah,
like that.
too
And
complicated.
again,
yeah,
Why don't we just say minimum size is 9 by 18 and forget the recommendation then?
we could do that. Probably.
Yeah.
I think that's,
yeah. I don't have a problem with saying what we recommend, but we're not gonna, you can get down as low as 9 by 18.
Okay,
and we're not gonna tell you you can't do it.
This next one residential, I think we will bear some discussion because I think Kurt disagrees with this and I don't necessarily, I'm not hanging my hat on that. Like, it's not a hill I'm gonna die on.
Yeah, well, is there a state law on that now, that you can't make it lower than,
You can't make it. I wish I
You
could.
can't
I think
require more
it's-
you
than
can't require
one and a
more,
half.
More than one
1.5 per year.
per unit or.
Yeah.
Or per bedroom.
Right,
I can't remember which it is.
yeah,
But we need to check on the state statute as it exists and make ours consistent.
well, we know it's not below 1.
Right.
Yeah, this will satisfy the state.
It'll
law.
satisfy the state,
Whether or
yeah, I
not it
think,
satisfies town.
Right.
I don't have a problem with that.
no,
I think that's fine.
Well, now, think about this, if you got a duplex, let's say, and you got 2 parking spaces, that's what's required.
Right.
right,
Even though you might have, the duplex each has 3 bedrooms.
That's the person looking at the place to rent.
that's,
Right.
And the owner says, if parking's a problem.
Go somewhere else.
And so either they go somewhere else or he doesn't get any renters and he does something about it. And creates more parking spaces.
Yeah.
Leave it to the owner. Let the market work.
Yeah, can I add
except
something?
it doesn't.
I-
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah. Sharon,
I just, Brad, I guess I really feel that if you're gonna increase housing, you have to not just let what happened may as far as parking goes. Because, and leave it up to the developer, because what's gonna happen is people will park their cars in, George's parking lot. You know, that guy needs business. He doesn't need residential people parking in his lot. People are gonna have problems with each other.
But if you increase the parking requirements to say 2 or 1 per bedroom, you're going to minimize development. It's going to affect developers.
People have to have cars. They have to have friends come and visit them. You need to you can't just say, we want housing, we want bedrooms, but we don't want cars.
I think you're providing space for cars and you let it work. My opinion.
Yeah, because what'll happen is, I mean, we're not theoretical here. This is actually what we have in town today are 7, you guys are counting spaces too, recently, right? So correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think if you walk from Route 4 all the way down to South Main Street, you'll find 7 on-street parking spaces. 7. And you cannot park in any of those overnight during the winter.
For the winter, you can't.
And then you've got the Whitney Hall lot, you've got the lot we own across from 54 Main. You got George's. George is a private property, so he's gonna call the police. Car's sitting there and he's not supposed to be there overnight. I think our lots, you can't park overnight.
Well, if you use TIF funds on Whitney Hall, it becomes public parking. And as long as it's not on-street parking. So you're gonna have to put in an ordinance that says you can't park there overnight.
Which is,
Right.
they'll probably do. you know,
Right,
it's
that's what I mean, yeah,
a rule.
because it's not happening at the community building. There's overnight parking there.
So what does that mean where someone's got a building with too many cars? There's nowhere for them to go.
Right,
They will, as you say, the owner will have to deal with it. He'll have to cut up his yard.
The only other alternative is to change it to something more robust in terms of 2 minimum parking spaces per unit or one per bedroom
You can't.
of the unit. And if you do that, the development across from George's would not have gone in. They wouldn't have been able to do the two bedroom spaces. They need a minimum of 12, there's 6 units, 12 parking spaces plus handicap. They don't have it.
State law isn't gonna let you do that anyways. Cause I believe it says minimum of, the minimum you can,
No, the
the
max
max you can put in a regulation is 1.5
per,
Yeah.
per unit.
per unit, regardless of bedroom size.
Regardless of that, I believe if they're above 3 bedrooms, there's another one.
I can't remember that.
Yeah,
Well,
But you could be right.
scroll up there where I crossed out all that stuff and it'll tell us what's current, this is what we currently have.
right.
No, that's,
Keep
keep
going.
going up.
Keep going.
Uh,
There we go.
Yeah, number of spaces, multifamily, 1 space per dwelling unit, lodging unit minimum,
Right.
okay?
Oh, so that's what we have today.
Yeah. Yeah. So you gotta have,
On-street parking.
You have exemptions.
We don't want that clause to stay in the ordinance because we don't have any on-street parking.
right.
Well, it will need to be in there anyway if we change things, so.
Right.
Parking serving multiple uses, lodging,
I mean, that's awful hard to figure out. I mean, because, you know, if you got a store or office space used during the day and residential parking spaces at night, there's,
You could solve this whole
There's
problem by
overlap.
just going with the state plan, have it over with. 1.5,
well, that would be more.
it would be more,
Than what we currently have.
it would be more. Would make Sharon happy and maybe other people in town,
and it will be consistent with
the state,
current state law.
right, I think that's the easiest thing to do.
They can, what the state says. the minimum
I
you
think
can-
it's going to hurt development. But
I don't think it is. Not at 1.5.
it would for the place across from George's. He's got 7 spaces.
Yeah. But he has
6
the
units,
ability-
and they're 2-bedroom units.
He has the ability
Not
to,
2 bedroom.
I think they're
Yeah.
one
I
bed.
thought they're just one.
They're, oh, I thought they were 2.
Rob, do you know?
The Jim Kelleher,
Yeah,
1 bedroom.
Or they're 1 bedroom.
They're 1 bedroom.
they're tiny. They're small. I bet.
They're very small.
They're shotguns.
But he'll rent those out.
He hasn't even advertised them. I think he's got more.
The issue he's going to be, he may have though, we haven't seen it yet, is if he does over Gulfy block.
yeah,
That one's exempted.
Oh, that's right.
Remember the
Because it's
language?
between Oak Grove and
Exactly.
High Street.
Well, so he was exempt there too.
So it's Kelleher.
so he's got to figure out where his
But it's one of those
prospective
things.
tenants are gonna park.
That's it.
Right.
That's what, I mean, I think that's what Brad's getting at.
Yeah, that's his problem.
It's gonna be a you problem. And it was interesting, because you remember when we had that hearing, Kim Quirk was sitting right here. And she said, Jim, if you need additional parking spaces, come talk to me.
Right,
It's like, I'm right across the street. I can rent you spaces.
right.
And actually Holmquist
Someone said the
is
same
renting
thing.
spaces to
Yeah.
a couple people right now. I know he is.
And that's not something that I would want to get involved with if we're.
It's not,
on the Site plan here.
it's not.
Well-
He comes in
Yeah,
with a
so,
plan.
so either a potential, renter there that has 2 working people in the 1 bedroom and 2 vehicles are either gonna say, move on and find another place, or they're gonna see if they can get the park.
Kim Quirk. Yeah.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt. Can I, just say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I agree with Brad's first statement. I've been in this exact situation where we do not have, we live in a duplex. We don't have 1.5 spaces per unit. And we've had to deal with it. And it's a perfectly fine minimum solution. You know, we've had people come say, oh, we've got 2 cars. And we've said, well, you can't live here, or you have to park one somewhere else. And they've moved on, and we've found, you know, renters that have a single car. And it really it's allowed us to not pave part of our driveway, or part of our yard, I should say. while still having the duplex. So, and the other thing to remember is we're putting in minimum standards, not necessarily the ideal. I think most people will still have more parking spaces than that, but we're really thinking in minimums, not in, similar to the parking spaces, right? We're not making recommendations necessarily here. This is a minimum. And I think one is the proper minimum per unit, especially as I look at, the folks, the younger folks I work with and everything, they have fewer cars.
Yeah,
Can you scroll back down where we were on residential? So we may come back to that either 1 or 1.5. Should we move on and look?
Yes, move on.
Temporary lodging essentially says the same thing.
yeah.
Minimum one parking space per bedroom on an STR that may not be possible. I'm thinking specifically of a STR on Bridge Street. And they've got enough room for, I think it's either 4 vehicles in the driveway area. And I'm pretty sure that they have more than 4 bedrooms.
What's an STR?
Short-term rental.
Ah, right.
So they've got an Airbnb.
Yeah,
Yeah, the whole house.
Right.
Where is this?
a
Bridge.
bridge.
Right next to Rob Malls.
Second to last on the left-hand side,
Yeah,
next to the log house.
yeah.
That was a property that was purchased by a company that specifically does short-term rentals.
Right,
There's nobody actually living in that house. It's only for short-term rentals.
right.
So that's the one, further up like the Bridge Street.
Yep. It's after Rob Malls, but before Mr. Sam.
Yeah, okay, well, that's interesting. So,
Before the
yeah,
log
that,
house.
Yeah. that's
Yes.
Mr. Sam.
I mean, in effect, that house would be grandfathered,
Right.
yeah,
but just thinking in terms of the overall question of short-term rentals and existing houses or possible future houses that may wish to become short-term rentals.
We had it in our short-term rental ordinance that we tried to put through. That a short-term rental had to have adequate off-street parking.
Right.
For the number of people that were coming to that. So if the place slept 12. Needed to have enough room for all 12 people to show up in the car,
half of them may have showed up in a van.
Correct, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So
If Uber did.
that makes it, that's a good point. Maybe we should just eliminate the minimum thing here and just say,
Must have adequate parking for,
let's demonstrate they're providing adequate parking.
right.
Yes.
Mhm.
And the idea was that if you showed up at a short-term rental and there were cars out in the street, you could say, hey, you're not meeting the ordinance. You're subject to our first level of fines or warnings or whatever, But it wasn't meant to be.
Should have passed.
So should that say,
I think it has to have
strike
adequate.
that sentence? That's
Yeah,
right.
I think you gotta strike it because if a family of 5 comes and they're gonna be in 3 bedrooms, and they all could be coming in the same car.
So where it says with a minimum of 1 parking space per bedroom, we'll just strike that clause, period. Or that phrase.
Right.
Yeah.
That should do it.
Yes, must have adequate on-site parking for all employees and overnight lodgers.
So item 4, that is, just kind of a catch-all.
Yeah.
Again, it's pretty general.
Right. Cause you can't regulate churches anyways.
That's right. You're right.
Yeah,
Only in half.
Why did I highlight community business district?
Because no,
special exception may be granted from the requirement. for parking and loading areas for new uses and structures.
I think that may already be in
Yeah, they may be.
CV district. Yes. Forgot why I got that. For some reason. Let's skip down and
Yeah,
keep going. We'll come back to that one. Leave the yellow there. So handicap, this is where the handicap stuff comes in.
meet the requirements of the ADA, yeah, that's all you need.
Yeah, and we really don't need to go into the detail, do we?
Nope,
No, so the table stays out.
Yeah. Well, no, we
hold
don't,
on, because we
the
need
table
there,
will not be there.
it's up to them.
It's up to them to
To
meet it.
read the ADA.
Right, so what I'm saying is that we do not include the table.
Oh, right, I thought you said it
Correct.
stays.
No, I said stays out.
Okay, stays out, yes. Yeah,
Yes. So the parking lot and loading area lighting is slightly reworded. You wanna. But not much.
Does this apply to residential parking area as well as commercial?
but it does.
It would, yeah.
That's gonna
That does,
tick off a lot of people.
yeah, you know,
What's
because, yeah,
People have floodlights that illuminate their entire dooryards.
yeah, I mean, I've got one I use for snow blowing
Yeah.
on the
Um,
driveway.
And to ask them to
Put in full
convert their $15,
We wouldn't
par 30
This would be new
floodlight
development,
to
because those are all grandfathered.
when the bulb burns out, does the grandfathering end?
No, because it's it's the unit,
The whole light could burn out, you could replace it because your grandfather.
If a baby
Right.
shatters the
Okay.
bulb,
yeah, I don't see that. I see that as new development. Unless we're gonna have a.
that's a bit of a gray area,
Ordinance.
as you have people calling.
It's an ordinance,
Well, no, we could put except for single family housing.
I would rather see you say
residential.
parking lot and loading area lighting in commercial
Okay.
Must be full cut.
and then just keep the paragraph as is. And not really say anything about residential, because that could be single family, multifamily, anything in between.
But if it's an apartment building, remember the light that was behind Sonny DeMar's place that came
Yeah.
right at his bedroom?
Yeah, but if it's a new construction, it would have to meet the full cutoff requirement.
So everything
But your neighbor that has a floodlight out over his garage that floods your bedroom, you can't do anything about.
And that's why you have a BB gun.
You can ask them
I
nicely.
don't wanna go to jail, plus the BB gun's not gonna reach across the lake.
All the way across the lake.
Oh,
well,
it's crazy.
so. Good point someone just made, but I think the single family home, we don't wanna be too dictatorial about, but what about duplex? New duplex is gonna be built. Or someone's putting two ADUs on their house.
Sort of a fine line.
Yeah. I think if we apply it to new non-single family, how does that sit?
Just give me the consensus of the group here and then I'll reorder it.
I would agree with what David just said.
Right.
And
We'll see if it passes.
to follow up on that, my assumption would be that a single family residence that has one or two ADUs is still a single family residence.
Yes, I agree.
It is.
Just clarifying.
Yes.
They're not gonna change their lighting.
No. Darren?
Just a point of clarification. So are you saying single family existing, I get? If it's considered a single family because they have two ADU, in my mind, what I would want, I might have that in my neighborhood. I might have that next door. You're saying this lighting doesn't apply to them?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. They can put the lighting, the same lighting you can put in your house.
But you're saying I'm thinking that you're saying that for a single family,
It is a single family.
I guess the bigger the building next to you and the more units they have, the more lighting they're going to have, the more lighting that's going to be shining into your yard, especially since you only have a border of 15 feet.
Yep.
And that house may be honking huge, if you're gonna let people go up 75 feet. And so the idea is, please don't subject people who are already living here to allowing multi-units next to them to, I'd like.
We're saying that the multi-unit would be covered under this.
Right. We're just saying the single family would not.
If someone built a house beside your house that was 75 feet tall and got approved, and it was single family, they could do anything they wanted with the lot.
Right,
Yeah,
But it's unlikely that it'll be 75 feet tall,
right.
Or that it would be approved.
or that it would be approved.
Well, but I think Sharon's right. What you're saying here is that all lighting for parking and loading area lighting, for whatever purpose the building is, needs to comply with this.
oh, I agree with that.
Yeah, except if it's a single family residence.
And I think it should apply to them as well.
I do too. I mean,
Never
just
pass.
making it downward facing instead of big bulbs.
It's not so much downward, it is half. So you can't have it go, Dan's light would not be legal to do a snow blower.
Right.
Well,
It
you
is
could turn it
very,
on for a purpose.
it's
and then
doesn't
turn it
matter.
off.
It's
So I
on,
do.
you either have it or
That's
you
all.
don't. It's a
Right.
very severe restriction to the individual homeowner.
Yeah,
I get it. I'm right there with you. I would like it, but it's severe and it would never pass this town, ever. Because people like their floodlights. I have neighbors that are afraid of the dark and have floodlights on all four corners of their building that are on all night.
Right.
That's the way they
people do
are.
that.
Okay, so,
I don't think you can get it all the way down to the single family.
You can't. I mean, we could
You
try.
might be able to do new construction, but that'll create a rep, I
well,
think.
someone wants to put up a new lamp post or a pole or whatever. I don't see any reason why they can't comply with regulations. There's all kinds of new stuff out there that satisfy this and satisfy the homeowner. And we're not talking about the guy who has the big floodlight, has
Right.
had it for years.
But if you're gonna try to illuminate your large dooryard that you can now illuminate with a single or two floodlight bulbs, that's gonna take more than just one pole mounted fixture, I would think. Because they go down and there's only so much that you can spread.
They go down, they don't go out.
The higher up the pole is, the greater the spread, but we're not gonna wanna see, 15-foot tall, commercial grade light posts in a residential area. That's gonna cause a lot of,
So, except for single family homes, and this will be the requirement. And when we say single-family homes, that necessarily implies and the ADUs that might attach.
Yeah,
Right. So I think that's what we have to say, but I'm not in favor of it.
Right,
Okay,
I'm really not,
no,
no, I understand you're not,
but I don't think you.
but we can't, I don't think politically anything
well, I don't think the
would
ADU,
pass.
I don't think the ADU makes a difference. And why I say that is because it's single family homes now that the issue is.
yeah, and this section is, only, I can't even figure out what did I add?
Right.
It's almost word for word, what
Yeah.
in the existing ordinance.
Yeah, let's go to number 8.
Do you have any input on that, Eric? On the lighting issue?
Um, not anything new to add. I mean, I think I like dark skies and stuff, but at the same time, my dad's the same as you are. He's got big floodlights up so that he can snow blow his driveway.
Right,
And I certainly enjoy using those when I'm there helping him out. But I think the single family home is a good, clean line to draw there. And so is the commercial. And one thing we
Yeah.
have to start remembering as we do these, because it's going to be the distinction from a short-term rental, that's commercial activity.
right,
Which is starting to be understood around, but that's one clear distinction there, where if somebody buys a single family and turns it into a short-term rental, that's commercial activity at that point.
Right. Well, I like number 9.
thank you.
How does an owner determine his minimum requirements? In other words, if I was developing a shopping center, not that we're gonna see one in Enfield, but if I was developing a shopping center that had a big anchor store and I was following traditional shopping center development rules or practices, I would size my parking lot for the day after Thanksgiving. And I would say, that's my minimum requirement. How do we get a developer away from that mentality through regulatory language?
Well, I am not certain that what you just described would is how they would approach it.
I
How would
think, I think this is one where those giant parking lots were driven by zoning regulations that required them to do it. And most developers probably would not want to build the parking lot for one day a year and maintain it.
Yeah, because it's expensive. Expensive to build, maintain, and wow. But I would think that the average developer would want a smaller lot. I don't know that to be true.
Yeah, and
To your point,
look, if a big box store was gonna go in somewhere in there, well, say the land that's currently gonna flood on Route 4. I guess we're gonna, for one thing, we're gonna probably have an engineer to peer review the engineering for the facility. And I would assume that, yes, they noted that, boy, this lot is a lot bigger than we're accustomed to, or whatever. They raised some yellow flag about that, then we could talk about it. There's no formula that we could point to that you have to follow, which I think is a good thing. But frankly, I just don't think it's gonna be a problem.
But let's look at our Dollar General, whatever it's called,
Dollar Tree.
Family Dollar,
Family
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever seen that parking lot full? And if not, can we then draw the conclusion that they could have built a smaller parking lot?
No, I don't think we can draw that conclusion. Cause I don't, even with 8 or 9 of us observing that, we're not gonna sit in every moment of every day for 365 days a year, so I don't know. There may be times when it's completely full. You got a truck delivery. I know it's an awkward parking lot to get in and out.
No kidding.
Yeah.
They didn't want to build it that way either.
Yeah.
We made them build it that way.
If it were a more popular store, there might be a problem.
Yeah.
It just isn't.
Dollar Generals in Canaan, you will see days where theirs is full
Okay,
and there's probably 20, 25 spaces.
okay,
Yeah.
let's leave that as is.
So, in terms of materials, stormwater treatment. What we're saying is we're establishing a threshold. Beyond which you actually have to. You can't just wing it. Got to get an engineer to do some design work and so forth, and whether it's 6 or 12 spaces or whatever. maybe
Including,
talk about that.
including multifamily.
Would have to.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I mean, and this issue is gonna get more and more intense as the years advance and.
Yep.
This item 10. I kind of lost where that was.
Yeah.
There's a section in there talking about bike racks
Yeah.
and. Just trying to get that to.
I think we were trying to get,
Is the bike rack allowed to be put on DOT land?
Nope,
no, that's to be on theirs.
I would kind of think it's a no-brainer that if Dunkin' Donuts or whomever brewery wants to attract people that are riding on the rail trail on bicycles, that they would put in a bicycle rack.
Maybe.
So I can't find it off the.
Like it's got a stand.
Basically, we have a
Bikes do have
provision.
kickstands.
We have a provision in the
Been a
ordinance
long
now
time
that
since I-
dictates how many bike spaces we're supposed to have.
Yeah,
Just, I don't know why it
Yeah.
said, whatever it said.
yeah.
I can't remember. And then the, final is just to change the definition.
Eric has something to say, I think.
No,
Shit, say it.
no.
Your hand was raised.
It was me, actually. This is Dave Buffet.
Okay.
Oh, it's,
I
all right.
think, as best I can tell, the bike rack at Mascoma Lakeside Park, which I donated the funds for personally as a contribution toward that park, has been used twice.
Yeah,
So I would stay away from mandating bike racks. people have expensive enough bikes with, particularly with the e-bikes, that they're not gonna leave them out exposed any place that they can't see them. I wish it was different, but that's the case it is. Did
I
you get
didn't
that?
have,
Yeah, I agree.
I didn't have any strong feeling on this. It's
Yeah.
just that there was an entry in here about that.
Yeah.
I said, well, it was
Right.
in there for some reason, so,
I think we delete it for now.
We strike it.
okay.
It would be a good point for Rob to bring up with people if they're hoping to attract people
Yeah,
from the
but
rail
any
trail.
business owner is gonna be, I mean, it's a no brainer for them, right?
Make it easy for them to come in the door.
Yep. Especially the brewery.
Okay, to summarize, we'll go back.
On bikes.
We're gonna strike 10.
Yep.
God, hang on. Your last sentence, a parking lot contains 2 or more adjacent parking spaces. Are we applying the rule about drainage and all that stuff to residential parking spaces that have 2 or more spaces?
6.
Yeah, he had 6 in there.
This says two.
But this says 2.
This is the definition for parking lot.
Well, they seem contradictory.
Well,
No,
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 more
because
than,
it's less than 6, you don't have to follow the thing above. It's just saying what a parking lot is. It's not then going upstairs and saying, because you're calling it a parking lot means you have to follow the 6
Oh,
parking
okay.
lot regulation.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the reason for that last sentence?
yeah. Now, let's see what it's our.
Everybody's house now becomes a parking lot. If you've got 2 cars.
Yeah.
if you plant a bush between each parking space, it's
It
no
would-
longer a parking lot. Because they're not adjacent.
Right.
Hmm.
But that would probably help in the stormwater issue.
Yeah. But,
Yeah, I don't know. You
yeah,
don't think it needs to be there, we can strike it.
I would strike it.
yeah.
Okay. So going backwards now, we're gonna strike 10.
Yep.
There's 7, we're gonna limit. I gotta put some word in there about not applying to.
Rob, you want to
single-family.
scroll so we can see what he's talking about, please?
Up to start 7.
So, right. Then 5,
We got, because we're getting rid of the,
I don't think that has any controversy there.
no,
Just. Right, and then, 4, 3, 2, and 1, okay. Except for,
Rob, scroll, please.
so 2, are we gonna go with 1 or 1.5? I guess that we need to decide that.
Oh, you said the state was.
The state is
1.5.
1.5. I would suggest would be consistent with state law.
Okay,
I think, so I'll suggest that we stick with 1 because that's what we currently have. And this is a minimum where the state law is saying that's a maximum that you're
Right.
allowed. So we're talking about 2 different things. One's a min, one's a max.
No, state law is a minimum, I'm pretty sure.
it's a,
no,
You
it's,
cannot have a larger minimum. It's the maximum minimum you're allowed to put. We're just saying,
Exactly.
what is the minimum?
Yeah.
You were allowed to do less than that.
towns from saying, oh, you gotta have 5 parking spaces per residential
unit.
unit.
Right.
Is that sort of a backdoor way in? to
Yeah.
just Eliminate housing.
Right. And creating a more restrictive parking rule than we currently have, I don't think is the right direction to move in.
Okay,
Yeah. Leave it as one. Okay, so we'll change that.
I'm not seeing the word off-street parking here anywhere. Do we want to put that in?
You mean how?
Well, we don't want people parking on the street,
Well, and
particularly if there is new building.
yeah, the selectmen have, winter parking ban, and then I think Whitney Hall and 56 Main, whatever we call that parking lot. There are rules there already that you can't. You know, and then the seven on-street parking spaces that we do have between Main Street and Oak Grove. I think there's the apartment building right next to Whitney Hall. They must have some sort of arrangement with the town, right, Val? Yeah. So obviously
They park right in front of their
There-
door.
yeah,
Yeah,
but otherwise,
Camper there.
there's nowhere for you to park on the street.
I'm sure.
But that's existing. If you're thinking toward new building and you're defining parking, isn't it, don't you want it to be one, not just one parking place? For, that one says per bedroom. Oh no, that's lodging. But it doesn't say that it needs to be on the property. That it has to be off street.
I see your point.
Well, the introductory paragraph, look at that. Scroll up there just a bit, Rob.
On-site parking
Right.
and loading shall be provided.
Is that
Yeah,
it? The-
I think that covers it.
Okay.
Except that the new state law says it doesn't have to be on site as long as you can make other arrangements that are
Well, that's an
acceptable.
exception we can offer.
Right. They have to show us that they can accommodate, that they have
a plan
a plan. An approved plan,
approved by who?
approved by whoever they're leasing the parking lot from.
Yeah, I think that's problematic. though.
I know it is,
That can change the very
Right.
next year, the
right.
person they're leasing from.
I know.
owners, They don't want it anymore. So I don't think we would be sitting here, show us your parking
No.
agreement with the neighbor, right? They're gonna say, I've got a really small parking lot and a lot of people, and I've worked out arrangements with my neighbors to park.
Yeah,
Okay, that's great. As far as, that's all we need to know, as long as you're not parking on the street.
Right, I've got a long driveway and I'm going to make it wide enough that you can park along the driveway.
Sure.
Okay.
Cause if not, I can't rent the property.
Mm-hmm.
So we wouldn't be approving any of
No.
the agreement or conditional or anything.
Right.
And then we did strike that sentence about, temporary lodging with a
Right.
minimum of one space per bedroom. Struck that sentence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
You have to show me.
Everything else okay?
Yeah,
Yeah,
good to be done.
Can you scroll up to like R1 or R3? Yeah, okay. Um,
It has to follow 409.
yeah, I would suggest, on the residential districts, taking out the and loading. To say on-lot parking shall be provided in accordance with 409.
Yeah, makes sense.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
They come up with good ideas
you
sometimes.
do, you do.
And on the R3 also.
Same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
on
in
all
all
the
of them.
all the residentials.
Yeah.
Is there anything in this on conservation district?
Well, no, hang a minute.
Okay,
It's not that. Because when, like in the R1 district, item N was referring only to, residential uses. But there are other uses within the R1 district. Which may have loading areas.
Right.
So we're just saying that anything dealing with parking and loading areas goes
Has to
section
follow
409.
409.
There you'll find the single family home issue,
yeah, as in like a church parking lot.
and that's.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Would that apply to R5 and R3 as well?
I assume there's more than just residential uses allowed in R5. Is there?
Rob?
There's exceptions. Sure. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, there are.
Agriculture.
There's, yeah,
yeah, okay, that's,
right.
that's gonna require loading.
Yeah, so yeah.
Okay. Stays in.
Where is the, Rob, where is the parking lot that the town owns, not the one across from 56 Main? But does the town own part of the property that we call the Lutheran Church parking lot?
Yes, so further in.
Very, if you're going towards Lakeside Park. There's the sort of the last telephone pole in that parking lot to the end.
Yep.
There's some new gravel, that's on that's town. We estimated get about 7 cars there.
And then at the new park, obviously that's a public parking lot.
Yep.
What about along Main Street?
That's what we're working on with the state.
Right.
The hope is to eventually get them to let us have parallel parking.
Yep.
Right along that sidewalk.
Yep.
Sort of even with park.
Yeah.
Right now, you could do it with just a little bit more pavement and fill in between the sidewalk.
Right.
But I think then the sidewalk would actually need to go out a little further from the road.
And the selectmen, police department, highway department, they're gonna have to put up a sign, no overnight parking
Right.
Yes.
as needed. I don't have to have.
The signs there toward the underpass are a little confusing. No parking here to corner. Corner? Oh, corner.
Yeah, that's so Mr. Crate can make the turn with his tractor trailer truck up Sergeant Street.
Oh.
Not to be confused with the one in front of Whitney Hall, which says no parking from here to corner. From here, no parking between signs, and you don't know that the other end of the sign is down at Hughes Park. And everybody parks in front of the police station.
Temporary signs up now.
Including the police.
Okay.
So are we gonna have let's see, Rob, you're working on the wording to do away with the Route 4 district?
Yep. Yep. That will be really easy, because are you in favor of
Eliminating.
striking or removing the so-called Route 4? We don't have to.
The Route 4 overlay district.
But you do have to redo the CV.
Yeah, it's
district boundary.
And reverse to its original
Yeah.
CP.
Yep.
What then? what then is left guides the commercial development of Route 4? What does the CB say?
CB, which originally it
It
was.
becomes CB.
Right.
I know, but what does the CB district rule say? We want to talk about that.
It's basically what I've always thought. It was one of those, it's like, what can the land support kind of, you know, like. It's sort of the highest and best use.
One of the rules is it's CB back to 200 feet, I think, 200 or 300?
300.
300 feet from Route 4.
What's next?
Next, I think we go on to top 2. Over the last week, Tim and I got together and went over his outline as it relates to the HOP grant so that I could have the HOP grant and this agreeing with each other as much as possible. Also had a similar conversation with Steve Whitman so that he could put together a budget. What Tim and I decided and what we are proposing to the group is that we have 1 or 2 planning board members work on the following topics. I'm gonna call them. First would be a deciding on the structure and layout of the ordinance itself. Next would be people working on the village and CB areas of town. Then there would be a lakes district. Then there would be a rural district. Then there would be a Shaker Village district, and Tim and I were uncertain as to whether there are 1 or 2 homeowners associations and how far the jurisdictions extend. Because we know that there's the Lower Shaker Village, which is basically single families. And then there's the Shaker Landing, which are condos. And are they related from a homeowner's point of view?
I think they're totally.
I think so too.
So they're the condos, but then there are
There's also northern,
the north, the
the North Shaker
houses.
Village. There's also northern Shaker Village.
Houses are like a road above the condos that are on the lake.
Yeah,
Right.
that's separate from the condos.
I believe it is. Have a different name.
Yeah, so we probably would want to get involved with people from all 3 of those plus Shaker Museum, since they're all sort of in the same area, and talk to all of those people about what sort of regulations they would be looking for. Next would be other districts such as conservation, industrial, Enfield Center, and whatever little bit needs to be done for Eastman. And finally, we would have people working on site plan and subdivision regs. Looking at those. So the idea, did I miss any, Tim?
No.
Okay,
Did you mention residential one?
Yeah,
That's a separate
we did
which one?
residential.
one.
Residential,
R1,
R1,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah, we did.
Sorry, I just missed that.
We did.
so, we would have one or two planning board members trying to develop, basically a framework or an outline. That-
Following the outline that we haven't yet developed yet, in terms of
Right,
the format, right?
right.
Yeah.
A template.
I think,
The template.
once Eric and I get going, yeah, hopefully we'll be able to
Right.
come up with a template working with Rob.
Yeah.
And
You know, what we're looking for initially is sort of a conceptual view of what should be allowed, what should not be allowed, setbacks, all that kind of stuff. Followed by, identifying some stakeholders in each group, 1, 2, 3, whatever. And bringing them into the conversation for their input. And if the people working on these feel like, taking a stab at writing actual zoning language, that's cool. And if you want to just leave it conceptually as a framework or as an outline, which I tend to think that would be a lot easier to present to the public from point of view of, not getting them bogged down initially in, legalese. That's, I lost my train of thought. You know, it would be up to each individual set of people that are working, whether they took it to the step of regulation or just left it as an outline in a more conceptual stage. From that, we would get the consultant to work with the group, answering questions, suggesting this is a good idea, this is maybe needs to be tweaked. And then once we're all happy with either our draft language or a framework outline, then, the consultant would prepare materials, charts and posters, handouts. And they would, and what?
Do charrettes,
Charrettes, basically. What
get
we're
the public involved.
Yeah, get mass public, basically, but focused on an individual group or topic. What we talked about is having two opportunities, for the same forum. In other words, like we did for within last year, we had a Thursday group and a Saturday morning group. So that if you couldn't make one, you could make the other. And if you could make neither, then there will be an online form that you could fill out to make your view known on the draft language or draft concept. We would then work with the consultants to revise based on the feedback that we get. And if the revisions were major, then there would be a second forum. Just to say, okay, we heard
Here's what
you,
we think we heard.
this is what we think you heard. This is what we think you said.
Yeah.
These are the changes that we made in response to that. Did we come close to meeting your needs and your objections?
Yep.
Then from that point, the consultants would take whatever final result there is and draft it into a complete set of regulations that follow whatever format we decide on.
Yep.
And they would make sure that the language is legally defensible, that the language doesn't conflict internally, As you know, we have many internal conflicts, and that it doesn't conflict with any state regulations. And after that, they would prepare materials for a public hearing. And then they would go, and then we would have the public hearings, make any changes that are necessary. Possibly have a second public hearing, but I hope not, because hopefully we'll get it right the first time. And then it goes on to the town warrant article. Did I
Can you
miss
get
any?
back to you with a number?
Yeah. Rob, do you wanna pull up the budget?
Let me share it so people online can see. Yeah.
So this is a format that's prescribed by the HOP people. And it's broken into three parts: the consultants' technical assistance, the consultants' community engagement, and the town's community engagement. So for the consultant, policy and regulatory audit, that means reviewing our current regulations, and that would focus on the subdivision and site plan, because they've already done a preliminary review of the zoning regs. Drafting and editing regulatory changes. That's coming, coming up with the official language based on what comes out of the forums. And item 3 is working with staff and planning board members monthly. And that doesn't mean once a month. It just means that they're gonna work with us, be available to answer questions by phone or email as we develop the framework. And I'm sure they're, you know, they've got money in there for Zoom sessions. You know, if you want to have a Zoom meeting with them, that's gonna happen as well. They might even come here for a larger meeting.
Can you scroll down, Rob?
That's close to $100,000 as you can get.
Yep.
Yeah,
Which is the
Grant
grant limit.
The grant
Right.
limit is.
Would we, are we only going to engage one company for a consultant, or is there an appetite to see if we get other responses?
I would personally like to continue with Resilience because they've already dove into it. They are not going from a standing start in terms of knowing the community, knowing what we're about.
Yeah, so I think I have to say this out loud. So I wasn't thrilled. I was very, very hopeful, and initially I was very pleased with what we saw.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we sort of hog-tied them because of this lateness,
We did,
right? And so,
and budget.
and budget, and we really put them over the barrel, but I wasn't thrilled. I mean, I was thrilled with the expertise of the two individuals we were working with.
Mhm.
I thought they were heads and shoulders above,
Mhm.
Randy.
Mhm.
But I was very disappointed with, the one or two public forums we had. In terms of,
I agree.
in terms of the materials that they provided, which was misleading to the public. And created lots of problems. And distrust from the public.
I agree with what you're saying, and I tie that back to they had a very short time frame in which to pull it together. And 2020 hindsight, it was probably not the best idea to combine the master plan focus group or forum with the zoning one.
Has the master plan stuff gone better?
It's beautiful.
Much better.
The master plan is coming together.
I mean, you listen to Steve and what's the other guy? Mark talk. I mean, they know they're
They do.
solid. I mean, thrilled, but I was disappointed, but I agree with you completely. I think we should go with them, but I was
No,
not thrilled.
I think your concerns are valid. I share them.
Okay.
And I don't, I don't tie the concerns to their level of competence. I tie it to the fact that they
Rushed.
rushed, they were under budgeted, and maybe, 20/20 hindsight says they maybe tried to accomplish more than they reasonably could have, given the constraints.
I don't buy the reasoning. We're suggesting that they exercise what I consider poor judgment. That was bringing that, particularly that last meeting we had with them. They should have known better to put that information out there as if the board had fully backed what their recommendations were. I'm still aggravated about that.
And I can tell.
I wasn't as upset about that.
Well, that said, and they watch this video, they'll know that. I
I think
don't think they'll exercise that bad judgment again.
Yeah, I think they knew it. I mean, I think it was obvious. I think they realized that, and I think they also realized about the public forum and the material that was
Yeah,
confusing and misstated.
I mean,
And our fault too, because we didn't catch it.
there was not a lot of time
Yep.
for review of a whole lot of material.
Yep.
I mean, we had one meeting when we had the drafts of all of their posters and handouts.
This is gonna go much slower. Where I shouldn't say slower, because there's a ton of work to do.
More deliberate.
Yeah, more
Yeah.
deliberate, and there's a ton of it, but we have a lot of time to accomplish it. But make no mistake, the plan that you just laid out, that Tim prepared, that's a ton of work.
It is.
Does everybody realize that? Is it a crap load of work?
It's a lot of work for us.
Yes. Yeah.
Plus for them.
Yeah.
And,
Well, and two questions here.
hang on, let me say one more thing. Steve did mention in our conversations this week and last that the timeline that we're proposing is very aggressive. He didn't say impossible, but he said it's a lot of work.
What is the timeline?
The timeline is to have this ready for town meeting 2026.
Year and 3 months, 4 months, 5 months.
Right.
Well, actually, you've got
No,
to, you
You gotta
gotta,
have
Year-
hearings in
it's
it's
a year.
It's
you gotta
about
be
a
done by
year.
December.
A year and 9 months,
Right.
give or take.
Yeah, but you've gotta be done with the hearings by December.
Yeah,
So let's, we get
Okay.
your question.
questions, we'll take Eric first and then David Buffet. Eric?
No, I'll just agree. I was disappointed with their performance, and I think we should put assuming we get the grant, I think we should put it out to bid to see what's out there and who else is out there to work on it. It's also just good process for something that's really important to town to put something like this out to bid.
Okay,
They actually, in the grant application, requirements, specifically say we can use a sole source consultant as long as they're on their pre-qualified list. Which is kind of unusual, but that is there. Although I tend to agree with you, Aaron.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with Eric also, but
Even though it's
Even if-
allowed, I think we should put it out to bid.
even if you put it out there for 2 or 3 weeks.
I agree, more work.
Well,
somebody's gotta,
Someone's
somebody's gotta get up to speed.
I don't,
well,
that doesn't mean they don't get it.
it's more work reviewing
Right.
3 different proposals and throwing a dart, decide who's gonna get it. That's gonna take time.
That's
You also run the risk of the consultant saying, oh, okay, well, maybe we'll go work with New London instead.
Maybe we're not gonna bid. Yeah. Dave's up to.
Okay, Dave? Okay,
I agree with all of the concerns regarding the previous developers. His obvious bias was for a southern New Hampshire heater road type development and not what we want for the character of this community. I echo Eric's concern that this be done with due diligence to make sure that we get the right consultant if you're going to do one. This is important for the long-term viability of this community. Thank you.
Rob, what's your take?
I think we didn't do a good job of managing our consultant. That's what we need to do better. Personally, I think that's what we need to do. We had a sports car in the garage. We didn't know how to drive a stick. Now we do. I think we do. I mean, we've had experience with them. So we could certainly do a better job. Round 2. And manage our expectations. What do we want? What do you want? What do you want? You know, like. And say, this is not what we want, or this is. You're going off on the wrong track. So
So it's gonna be driven by what the public wants, right? And in order for the public to be able to respond and suggest changes, it's gotta be put down on, black on white, right? You gotta have something that people can review and not just ideas that were loose,
but the way we're structuring the process
much tighter.
is that the initial concepts come from us, not from the consultant.
Yep.
And I asked at the previous housing forum, not forum, Housing Academy, I asked some people from that organization or those organizations, how would it go if we did it this way or that way? And they said, well, traditionally, the consultant comes up with it, but they couldn't see a downside to the town coming up with it the way we're proposing.
I don't see how you can have the consultant create it when the consultant doesn't have the town input.
Yeah.
It's gotta be a hand-in-hand thing, and I think for us to be less hands-off, we need probably $200,000. Consultants.
I'm gonna jump in here too. What I'm gonna jump in is, this was originally a zoning rewrite. And now we're jumping on with subdivision, site plan. All of a sudden, we're doing the same thing we did the last time where we added master plan on. And I think we may want to rethink the whole thing being, doing the whole, that second and third package. When we really want to be doing the zoning ordinances.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about that too.
I'm confused. What are you saying?
I'm saying that our original idea was to redo the zoning ordinances.
The whole thing?
Not the subdivision regulation, not the site. It wasn't from where I'm sitting.
The original grant, HOP 1 grant, included a rewrite of all 3.
And and your point is, we should be doing less better than trying to do all not so good.
Right. Yeah,
I was gonna throw out that one safety valve we might have on the level of work and pressure we're about to engage in is that we could say to ourselves at some point, you know what, we just don't have the bandwidth to deal with site plan and subdivision regulations.
right.
That will be our next goal after we get past March of 20.
Because the ones we have to get approved by the public is the zoning.
Well, the site plan and
The site plan subdivision is an internal document.
Those are just public hearing and
They're public hearing, they're not vote of the public.
And, I mean, I haven't heard a lot of complaints about those two here in this group. Nobody's complained about site.
since I've been on the board, we haven't really had a complicated problem to sink our teeth in.
Right.
I have no idea if they're good or not.
I mean, I think your suggestion that if, you know, 4, 5, 6 months into it, it proves that we need to drop off something, we could certainly drop off site plan and subdivision. I don't have a problem with that.
I think Dan's point is why you even put it on there.
Well, no, I would like to see us working on the zoning first. And, you know, a subcommittee on site plan and subdivision is 9 months down the road, when we already have somewhat of a structure of what the zoning's going to be. Because the site plan and subdivision is gonna have to match what the zoning says.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to be doing them at the same time by different groups,
Dan,
because they may not meet.
you know those regs probably better than any of us, well, outside of Rob, but.
Right.
So, actually, to both of you. If we did a new zoning ordinance that had all the elements that we sort of been talking about, and it passed.
Yep.
Having the existing subdivision site plan regulations as they are today in existence after March of 26, is that gonna see any big red flags?
No.
I don't.
Shouldn't.
No. And we've got a couple of districts there that we're gonna do nothing to. Eastman's gonna be 0. It's gonna follow the homeowners association.
Right.
And the same thing with Shaker Village, other than if they say, hey, we'd like you to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not gonna have input into what they do because their regulations are gonna be a lot stricter than ours.
Well, Dave and I had talked about it. I think with Shaker Village, that's less true. Eastman, very true,
Yeah,
but we don't wanna get involved in the weeds on any of these districts
right.
tonight, not tonight.
Shaker Village is very few sites left that are undeveloped.
Yeah,
Pretty well built out.
the more I got looking at the situation there is complicated.
Oh, yeah. It's unbelievably complicated. And it's something that we couldn't fix.
No,
They're still working from their original approval.
Right.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we have setbacks now.
so,
There's no setbacks in Shaker Village.
so here's.
5 feet maybe.
Here's the thing. The HOP grant last year, and I think this is what really hampered us, is we all kind of went into there, or at least I had the impression that we were gonna end up with a new zoning ordinance.
Right.
And what we got were suggested tweaks to our existing ordinance. Some of which we liked, some of which we didn't.
Yeah.
And so I was disappointed. Anyway, the grant application language suggests to me, the way I interpret it, that whoever we get for a consultant for their $100,000 can actually get into the nitty-gritty of the definitions list.
Right.
How the ordinance is structured, how it's administered, so forth. However, I think we've got to have quite a bit of words down on paper as to which direction we want to go, as Dave suggested. Because we don't have $200,000.
And 50% of this is going to be the public input piece.
Yeah.
Yes,
Because we want to get the public input early. I mean, we probably want to have a draft before we've got consultants really working on it.
I mean, that's probably the way it's gonna happen.
Right,
You know, we'll make the consultants available to
right,
us, but it's us asking them,
right.
not the consultants coming
Coming
in and saying,
This is,
well,
right,
we're looking at your framework or your outline and we think blah, 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 blah.
right.
And I'm confident that the consultants understand that.
Okay,
In terms of the site plan and subdivision piece of it, the grant extends until September of 27.
okay.
So
So that gives us time.
that gives us time to work on the zoning piece.
Yeah.
It gives the consultants time to look at our current regs and tell us what could be improved.
Okay,
And then after we do the zoning piece, we can jump into the subdivision and site plan. From what, January of 26
to
until the
Okay.
end of 27.
Okay.
Or September
Yeah.
27.
I guess what caught me was you had a group doing site plan and subdivision as if it was a part of this original thing. And if that's it, then I don't have a problem then.
Well, thank you for helping me clarify that.
Yeah,
Okay,
because I had them going side by side.
I think what we do is none of us volunteer to work on that right now.
Well, that's what I'm
that's
saying.
fine.
That's what I'm saying is, and then when you get your zoning done, you can break up the site plan and subdivision
Mhm.
among the seven.
Yeah.
Because those aren't gonna need a lot of public input because it's gonna be based on the zoning ordinances.
Right.
All you're doing is trying to make them mesh together
And to possibly streamline the
and
process.
streamline the process.
Is the excavation regulations, is that also an internal?
I couldn't figure out how to relate excavation to increasing housing.
Right,
Well, no,
but they'd be in this, they're in this
I didn't want you
subdivision.
to, I'm just
Site
asking.
plan.
They sit as their own.
They say it as their own, exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, they're driven by state law for the most part.
For the most part, but I think it's another, just like site plan and subdivision, it's another
It's
document
internal,
that you guys can amend.
right. It's an internal
It's a
document.
Resolution of the
Okay.
board.
So are you saying, Dan, that you agree with adding the master plan on top of all the zoning stuff still? I mean,
No, no,
The master
the
plan,
master
That's gonna
plan
be
is
done.
totally separate.
that's separate.
well,
that'll be done.
it is.
But
It
it's-
is separate, and that's last meeting I said I felt like we should do less and do it well. And
But the master plan, the second 5 chapters will be done by then.
The second 5 chapters will be done by the end of this year, before the grant money
Okay.
Even
is
given.
awarded.
And
Yeah.
we're not doing a third 5 chapters.
Not that I'm aware of.
Come on, Brad, let's do it.
No, thank you.
No, by rights, we should have the second 5 approved by January.
Yeah.
I would hope before.
Right, well, that's what I mean.
I mean, at the rate we're going, we saw 2 of the
You could have it
5
by November.
and they were really good.
Okay,
You know, some wordsmithing had
Yeah,
to be
okay.
done, some,
yeah,
relatively minor stuff that you would
Fine-tuning.
expect.
right, okay, so,
So we're gonna see the next 3 in 2 weeks or so.
okay,
And I would think sometime in November, they are gonna be ready with a complete package for us.
When does it go back out to the public for, response?
I think for this one, I just want to do a public hearing since all of the chapters are represented by different committees or boards.
Of the town.
One hearing or five? One.
One,
That'll be a long hearing.
So,
I don't really think so.
No.
I don't, because
It wasn't
shorter.
the first 5 chapters, we had one hearing and I didn't feel that was unduly long and the first 5, I think, are a lot more complex.
We did a lot more public engagement on the first line.
We did.
Right, because they were more vision.
And the first 5 did not have pre-existing groups. We have an energy committee, we have recreation. And that was why we, you know, we took the approach that we did.
Yep.
That the master plan task force version 2 was composed or is composed of people from these various committees.
Made it easier.
And they are the liaison to the general public.
so, I don't know what you're thinking about in terms of process here, but, you know, we as a board have to vote to adopt these new chapters. And, which means that, for me, I would like to get the document in time to read and digest it. And then have a meeting,
To
a
discuss.
board meeting to discuss it with the 5 groups present. So it would be a public meeting, obviously,
Oh, yeah.
but not really, it's more.
It's pre-hearing. It's a pre-hearing.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can schedule that, I think it'd be really helpful.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, our first step before we can set a date for that kind of a meeting is for the master plan task force to be happy with what we're presented. And
Well, when the task force is happy, and they need to come to the board, our board.
yeah, definitely.
Tell us we're happy and this is why, and
Yeah,
why you should be
right.
happy.
Right.
Then we go to the public hearing.
Then we go to
Right.
then we go to public hearing, or if we see stuff in it that we don't like, we talk about it with them and we say, we don't think this is a really good vision for energy or contradicts our zoning or whatever. And you guys have to revise it.
I'm gonna be easily persuadable. Right, folks putting in all that effort, I get. But anyway, we need to do that.
I agree with you. But we won't get that same situation with the public on the zoning, people will be very
Oh, yeah.
vocal. Right. As they should.
I agree.
Yeah.
As they should, because it
Yeah.
affects, yep, directly.
I mean, you know, like we've always said, the master plan is the 50,000-foot view. And the zoning is the implementation part where the rubber meets the road. And it's always, you know, when you start putting regulations into effect or proposing them, that's when people say, well, maybe that wasn't quite what we meant.
Well, in terms of rubber meeting the road.
My rubber needs to be
You
the
have to fill out these,
Do we want to do that tonight? It's almost 9.
how about if, we think about it and we contact you individually about what our preferences are.
Okay,
Maybe next meeting, you'll be able to tell us who's doing what.
all right.
where the holes are.
Our next meeting is our work meeting anyhow.
Yeah.
So that would be a good time to confirm everybody's choices.
I'm either gonna have to retire from my job or get off some of these committees.
Well, it's time for you to retire. You're getting up there.
Here he goes. He's been to one CIP meeting. It's all over and he wants to
No,
get out.
the CIP stuff's going right over my head.
Yeah, that's what you said about planning board when you first joined it too.
Yeah, well,
And you're up to speed.
nah, I don't think so.
I have some news for you.
What's
When
that?
you retire is when you really get busy.
Yeah,
Because
Yeah.
now you don't
Believe
have
me.
a job interfering. with
Right.
your
That's
life.
right.
I know.
You're not sure if it's a Sunday or a Monday.
Yeah,
It doesn't make any
Doesn't
difference
difference.
You
anymore.
don't even know what month it
that's
is.
exactly. And there's no such thing as a
Oh,
holiday.
she knows what month,
What the
because it
hell?
depends where she is.
Well, for her, maybe.
She can figure out, right? If she sees a palm tree.
If I'm warm or if I'm cold.
Yeah.
For those of us that don't travel south in the winter,
Right.
it could be January and it could be July. It doesn't make a
Rod's
difference.
friend just bought a place or owned
Can
a
I-
place where, what island?
Can I make a motion
Oh,
to
thank
adjourn?
God.
You certainly can.
I will then.
Motion has been made and seconded, we gotta do a roll call. Eric,
Aye.
I
Linda,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Brad, Tim, Jim.
and I for an I.
We're adjourned
Those will let
at,
Aaron.
8:55.
Thank you for coming, Sharon. You can go home.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you, guys, everybody.
Yeah. Oh, they already assigned me.
It is.
Yes, I'm on the lake.
Of course.